welcome everyone to this community informational Q&A meeting on what we are calling the Super 8 Permanent Supportive Housing Development in the city of Goleta. Welcome on behalf of the Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara. You will see that addressing the issue of homelessness truly requires a team effort. As represented by, you will hear from folks from the Housing Authority, from the city of Goleta, and from the County of Santa Barbara, as well as one of our architects on the development. First, I would like to introduce our Executive Director at the Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara, Bob Havlicek.
Thank you very much, John. And I'll keep my comments very brief. I hope you all find this presentation very informative tonight, and we hope to answer the questions you have. And I'd like to thank the county and the city for working so hard with us on getting us to this point in the process. It really does take a team effort, and we appreciate everyone's efforts to this point. So with that, John, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, and one of our esteemed partners who will be welcoming the attendees from the County of Santa Barbara, our 3rd District Supervisor, Joan Hartman. Joan, please.
Thank you. It is my privilege tonight to welcome you to this virtual meeting and to learn more about this proposal for the Super 8 motel to permanent supportive housing. And this is a really wonderful partnership with the city of Goleta and the Housing Authority of Santa Barbara County and the county. And I have to tell you, the city has really stepped up. Not all cities in the county are doing this. And so I'm just so proud to represent 2/3 of the city of Goleta now. You may, this project was in Supervisor Hart's district until January 13th when the new districts went into effect. So this project is moved from the 2nd district to the 3rd district. I want to tell you that the county is focusing very intently on the unsheltered population. It's investing $24 million on homeless issues. And it's created a regional elected leaders forum, and that is chaired by Supervisor Hart. And it includes all 8 cities as well as the county. And we're also working with Caltrans and Union Pacific. So this is really a concerted effort. And the #1 premise of that elected leaders forum is that homelessness has to be addressed in a regional way by all of us working together. And if we don't, then we're just playing musical chairs and shifting the population and the health issues, both for residents as well as, and I'm going to turn my video off because I have unstable, so you can hear me but not see me, I'm afraid. I live in a rural area in the county, but anyway, the important point is that we need to solve this working together, and we have unprecedented opportunity now because we have money flowing from the federal government and the state government as well. And my fundamental premise in governance is that all of us working together is smarter than any one of us alone. And so I'm grateful to everyone who's participating here tonight to learn more about this effort and to ask us important questions about how it fits into our regional strategy so that we really can significantly reduce homelessness in our community over the next few years. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Hartman, whose district the Super 8 Permanent Supportive Housing Development is now in. But it had been, as Joan mentioned, in the 2nd district. And so we have a 2nd district supervisor, Greg Hart, who would also like to speak because he was really excited and supportive of this particular development being in his district until the redistricting occurred. So Supervisor Hart.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be with everybody tonight. It's a very exciting opportunity we have in front of us. And this is a wonderful chance for folks in the community to hear about the project, to understand what we're trying to do, and to get all of your questions answered. This is very important that we do this kind of outreach so that people are fully aware of what this project is and what it isn't. But I'm like Supervisor Hartman and Mayor Perotti, very excited about this opportunity. It wasn't easy to get here to this moment when we have an application with the state for a very large potential grant funding. And the partnership between the City of Goleta, the Housing Authority, and the County of Santa Barbara is something all three of us are very, very proud of. It's the culmination of a lot of work and not a very straight path. We had opportunities previously to acquire this property that didn't quite work out, but it's in the perfect location to serve the entire Goleta Valley and residents in our area who are unhoused and are wanting to come indoors. And that's really our mission, is to try and give people an opportunity to get their lives back together by providing them the services, the job training, the mental health treatment, the drug and alcohol rehabilitation on site in an indoor setting, so folks can get their lives back on track and become a productive part of our community again. These are our neighbors. These are folks who have been living amongst us for many, many years. And this is our opportunity to do the right thing and help them. And I just want to conclude by telling a little story, because it was very inspiring to me. Prior to the pandemic, I was traveling in Europe and went to many of the biggest capitals in the country, cities in Europe. And it struck me that there were not nearly as many people living on the street begging for money as we encounter in California every day, and in the major cities and here in Santa Barbara County. And at one point, I just was so perplexed that I went up to a police officer in Amsterdam and I asked him, what's going on? I live in California. You know, we have a really difficult challenge with folks who are poor, who can't find a place to live in our communities. And he just looked at me with kind of a quizzical look on his face. And he said, well, in our country, we take care of people. And that really sunk into me, because it's so simple and it's so honest and so direct. And that's our challenge, is to take care of our neighbors who are struggling, who need help. And this wonderful facility that the Housing Authority is going to manage and operate is a great example of us doing that, reaching out and helping our neighbors so that they can come indoors and get their lives back on track. So I'm proud of this project, and I look forward to the community hearing about all the elements that work together to make this a success. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Hart, and really appreciate both Supervisors Hartman and Supervisor Hart attending and welcoming the community to this meeting, showing really the strength of the county role in the partnership. The third prong of that partnership is certainly the City of Goleta, and we have the esteemed Mayor, Paula Perotti, here to speak on behalf of the city. Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. And I just want to thank the Housing Authority, County Housing Authority, and the Supervisor Hartman and Supervisor Hart. It truly is a collaboration with the city, and the city working regionally is so important. And this is an important project. And I couldn't have said it any better than the two supervisors, Hartman and Hart. This is an exciting opportunity. And I just want to make it really clear that this is permanent housing. It's not a shelter. It's where rooms will be turned into apartments with supportive services on site. And I know you're going to hear a lot from others this evening on how it's all going to work out. And so I'm going to be brief, but I look forward to the success of this. I'm proud of this opportunity to help our folks without homes. And, you know, many of them will be locals. They'll be foster adults coming out of foster care, our veterans. You know, they deserve a place to call home, and they will not be homeless anymore. They will have a home. So with that, thank you again, everybody, and the City of Goleta, of course, for being here this evening and supporting this project. And I just would like to say that it was unanimous. Our council, all of us, approved of a support letter, and so we're all on the same page with this. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. And I also want to acknowledge, without trying to name everybody, the numerous staff individuals who are here from both the County of Santa Barbara and the city of Goleta, a couple of whom from the city you'll hear from shortly, but really appreciate it. It literally has taken dozens and dozens of people to get to this particular place. Just a little brief introduction, an overview of the Super 8 permanent supportive housing. The Homekey funding source from the state, this is the second round of funding, and the funding is specifically intended to do quick conversions of existing properties, motels, hotels, office buildings that can be converted either to transitional housing or permanent supportive housing. We have chosen the route of going immediately into permanent supportive housing so that there is not a time limit for the individuals once they're housed at the site. We have affectionately called the working title as Super 8 Permanent Supportive Housing. That will not be the ultimate name, but that will be the working title that we're using at the moment, since everybody's familiar with where the Super 8 is located at the corner of Hollister and Fairview. Just a quick word about the Housing Authority. We've been around 81 years. We were actually formed by resolution of the Board of Supervisors back in 1941. There are days where I feel I was there when we began, but I have been here for 26 years of the 81 years of the Housing Authority. And the Housing Authority began developing permanent supportive housing 12 years ago, a little bit over 12 years ago. We opened the first permanent supportive housing development up in the city of Lompoc. We now have 6 that are operating at different places throughout the county. Most people in and around the city of Goleta might be most familiar with Pescadero Lofts in the community of Isla Vista, which actually celebrated its 7th anniversary in December. So we are in year 8. With that said, I will turn it now to 2 of my esteemed colleagues from the city of Goleta. We will first hear from Jaime Valdez, who is, it's not interim anymore, right? It's the Director of Neighborhood Services and Public Safety. And Peter Imhoff, who is the Director of the Department of Planning and Environmental Review. Jaime,
Great.
it is yours.
Thank you very much, John. Jackie, if you could pull up the slide deck,
Yes.
that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And again, good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to go through some of these slides fairly quickly so we can get to the very important part of addressing any questions the community may have. But the Super 8 Hotel, as everyone knows, we have it featured here, just a quick photo of it. Next slide, please. So much of the backdrop for this project can be kind of led back to the need for housing, especially for our folks that are experiencing homelessness. Every 2 years, the county does an official point in time count of individuals experiencing homelessness. Actually, we'll be having another one on February 23rd, coming up in about a month and a half or so. So in 2020, that number of individuals that were counted was about 1,900 persons, so 1,897. And of those, 1,223 were experiencing unsheltered homelessness, and 674 were living in emergency shelters. So that just gives you a bit of a context of the size and scale of the issues that we're dealing with. And at the time, 75% of those folks had most recently, 75% of people experiencing homelessness had most recent permanent addresses in the county of Santa Barbara. So these are actually our neighbors. Next slide. Just for perspective, talking from the Goleta's perspective, the city of Goleta, the city adopted its first ever homelessness strategic plan back in April of 2021, and it was unanimously adopted by the city council. It was a process that took almost a little over 2 years with robust public outreach and input, something we're very proud of. The goal of the plan is to provide important direction and clarity around needs, service gaps, all of the things that are have been talked about earlier, and essentially to make effective and strategic funding decisions that serve both the existing homeless population as well as those that are becoming homeless. The plan helps guide all of these issues, but at the end of the day, what we really wanted to focus on is that the Super 8 Homekey project specifically addresses one of the identified service gaps and fulfills one of the central goals of the plan, which is to increase the supply of transitional housing and permanent supportive housing, as well as emergency housing. So essentially, this project provides what the plan calls for. And so we're actually very thrilled to be in support of it. And we'll talk a little bit more as we go forward here. Next slide. So I think Mr. Polanski already talked about the Homekey project, but we did want to underscore that it really is a partnership among the city of Goleta, the county of Santa Barbara, and the Housing Authority of the county of Santa Barbara to seek funding to purchase and rehabilitate, in this case, the Super 8 motel for the purpose of permanent long-term housing. And I think that's one thing that we really want to underscore is that this is intended to be supportive housing, and we can't stress that enough. The program itself continues to focus on and kind of rose out of the need for housing people experiencing homelessness during this time of COVID-19 to really kind of underscore the importance of it and getting people housed. It's administered by the state of California, and the potential Homekey project that we're looking at is located at 6021 Hollister Avenue. Next slide. That's just a quick aerial view of the actual location. And I think we have one more slide. And so this is where I'm going to transition it over to Mr. Imhoff, who is our Director of Planning and Environmental Review, to go over some of the applicable state laws and how this is viewed from the city's perspective in terms of processing the application that's before us.
Thank you, Jaime. The state of California has made clear that the homelessness crisis is a major priority and has recently passed a number of pieces of new legislation that govern supportive and transitional housing and that affect the permit process that normally would apply to a project like this. As you'll hear, these laws really limit the discretion and really eliminate the discretion that the city has over a project like this. So AB 2162 is a 2018 law that was passed through the state legislature that made supportive housing a use by right, even in zones where that are non-residential, but that permit multifamily uses. This site here is zoned community commercial, which allows for multiple unit development and mixed use. So AB 2162 applies to it. Similarly, in earlier last year in 2021, the state legislature passed AB 140, which among other things creates an exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act for projects that are funded through this funding program called Homekey. Under that program, projects that are funded are automatically deemed consistent with all local plans and standards. That means that normal objective requirements like parking standards or open space standards will not apply to this project. Next slide, please. Two more laws of interest. SB 35 is a law that was passed a few years ago that generally creates streamlining provisions for housing projects and makes certain kinds of infill projects subject to a ministerial approval process in order to expedite affordable housing projects. Then SB 450 is a 2019 law that also creates a statutory exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act, specifically applicable to conversions of motels and hotels to supportive and transitional housing. Next slide. So what does this mean for the City of Goleta's review? Normally, again, a project like this would be subject to a more involved discretionary review process. But in this case, because of the state legislation, this project would be subject only to a ministerial permit review, again, where the project is deemed to be consistent with all of our local standards. And as a result, the permit type is the lowest tier a zoning clearance, which is not appealable to our planning commission or city council. It's also, as I said, not required to meet the city's development standards, and it's subject to these double exemptions from the California Environmental Quality Act. As a result, the city does not have the ability to place conditions on this project or to otherwise exercise discretion. Fundamentally, we can't say no, but of course, this is a project that we fundamentally support in any case. So that's just a little bit of an overview of the rules that apply and the process that will apply for this project. And now I'll pass it back to John Polanski and to the architect team at Aries, Tom, Jess.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter and Jaime. We will go to the next slide, please. And we'll talk a little bit about what is permanent supportive housing. But first, I do want to talk just a little bit more about this particular development, the Super 8 permanent supportive housing development. We estimate the total cost of the development to provide 60 units of permanent supportive housing to be about $19.7 million. Of that $19.7 million, up to $16 million will come from the state through the Homekey 2.0. And this is $16 million that would otherwise not come into the county or the city of Goleta to address the issues surrounding people experiencing homelessness in the community. So the team has agreed that this is a great opportunity to bring in state funding in a significant amount to try to house some of the unhoused folks within and around the city of Goleta. So permanent supportive housing. I want to read a little bit of it and kind of highlight on this slide. It combines stable, affordable housing assistance, and there's been a lot of talk about affordable housing over the years. The Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara itself has right around 1,450 or so units of affordable housing, traditional affordable housing spread throughout the county. And then it talks about, but it combines it with voluntary support services, specifically to address the needs of people who are experiencing homelessness prior to being housed. So it's not enough to see somebody who is living in an encampment and hand them a key and tell them to go over to the Super 8 and be good. It often requires some very significant, what we call wraparound support services combined with that housing. So you have the person stabilized in a safe, affordable environment, the housing, but then you provide the on-site and off-site support services so that the person can move forward with whatever their specific needs are. The idea of the permanent part of it is there are no specific time limits. It is available for a person as long as they need it and as long as they adhere to all of the lease terms, the rules, and the regulations. There is a lease that individuals sign. There are commitments that an individual makes, and it is the individual's responsibility to make sure that they are not a danger to themselves or to others. And we're very concerned about the individual themselves, but we're also concerned about the other residents and our neighbors within the community. So supportive housing, some of what it offers, individualized case management based on what the individual's needs are, on-site support services, and right now the Super 8 has 65 units. Our proposal is to convert 5 of those 65 units into support service space so that there's additional common area meeting space where support services can be provided on site. But it's also connecting to community-based services, such as healthcare, treatment, and ultimately the goal of everyone is employment services or going back and receiving additional education that would lead to employment. Next slide, please. And I will then turn it over for the specifics of how we turn a Super 8 motel into permanent supportive housing. It is through architects' expertise. And we have Tom Jess of Aris Architects who is here to run through those. And then we will be concluding with a Q&A, starting with the chat, but then also inviting people to speak live if they care to. Tom, you're on.
Great. Well, thank you, John, for running through that, and everyone else that's associated with this project. These are exactly the types of projects that we, as an architecture firm, are most proud of. These are the types of things where we get to give back to the community and do something that has a true and lasting impact. So doing something like this truly affects people's lives, and to be a part of that, or a small part of that, I should say, is pretty darn rewarding and something we look forward to. So what I wanted to do was just kind of, can you go back to the photograph real quick, please? Yeah, what I wanted to do was just kind of walk you through the physical changes that are going to happen and what we're doing in order to make this permanent supportive housing. Everyone talked about the need for it and how much beneficial it is, but I thought I'd kind of talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts and what we're going to do to the building and to the site. So I just want to start with this first image, which is of the exterior of the building. And very little is going to change on the exterior of the building. The vast majority of the changes are going to be to the interior. The only thing that's going to change on this one is the Super 8 sign is going to go away, and it's going to no longer be a Super 8 sign. So there's going to be very few changes to the exterior. But if you can go to the next slide. Just one more slide, please. There we are. Perfect. So this is the existing site plan. The yellow portion is where the building is. There is a breezeway that passes through the building, and then there's a pool up in the corner of the site there, and parking all the way around. So this is the existing site, and then if you can go to the next slide, please. We'll show you what the proposed site is. So the proposed site is very similar. You can see that there was where that drive-through went through the center of the building. We're going to close that off and create some common outdoor area that's covered outdoor space in the center. And then where the pool is, we're going to enclose the pool and make an outdoor recreational area in that area where the pool was. But outside of that, the exterior of the building, the site, pretty much remains as is. And if you can just go to the next slide, please. So here's a comparison of the ground floor. I'm not walking through all the floors, but this is a pretty good example floor plan. And as John mentioned, the support services of this are a absolute essential and key part of the whole renovations and the game plan here. And the Housing Authority is a really good partner for that. They're ones that reach out to the community to get those support services and really kind of tie and bring everyone together. And all we're doing on our side is we're providing the location and the services in the area where those services can happen. So as he mentioned, we're converting some of the current hotel rooms into those areas. You can see there's a community room with a kitchenette, an area, a little library area. We're putting in a new communal laundry area so that people have opportunity to do their laundry. There's offices for more supportive type services in there on the ground floor. So on this one, the top floor is the existing first floor plan, and the bottom one is the proposed first floor plan. And there's other changes throughout, but I just kind of wanted to highlight a couple of them. And one thing I did want to point out is that with this renovation, we are going to be converting 15% of them are going to be fully adaptable units or fully accessible units that can accommodate people with disabilities, with mobility disabilities, or visual impairment. So those changes will be happening to 15% of the units. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to show you just a typical conversion of what the interior is going to look like. So a typical hotel room is on the left-hand side. That's the existing hotel room. It's got the restroom and then the sleeping area with the where the bed and the TV would be. So what we're doing is, in order to make this permanent housing, we are putting in some cooking appliances. So we're putting in a little closet so that there's some place to hang their clothes and have some storage. And then we're putting in cooking appliances. So there'll be a sink, a refrigerator, a stove, and so that's the main conversion within the hotel room to an apartment, basically. And it's pretty simple and straightforward in theory, but it's much more complicated when we get into it. And there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. But We've done this before. It's worked out really well, and we couldn't ask for a better team with the Housing Authority, the City of Goleta, the County of Santa Barbara. Everyone has been really motivated and moving in the right direction. And I can assure you that the Housing Authority is going to do a great job managing this. They do on all their properties. So that's kind of the brief walkthrough of the project from a physical standpoint. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to John and let him conclude the presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. And Jackie, if we could have the last slide, that has my contact information. Some people I know prefer to just reach out directly. So I would encourage you to put down my email address. I have been receiving a lot of emails already with just your questions. We had a lot of media outreach the last couple of days in particular. But please, feel free if you don't want to be involved in the Q&A here, but think of something after the meeting, please do. Again, I'm John Polanski, Director of Housing Development, and it's John Polanski at hesbarco.org. So as long as you get the E at the end of my name, you'll be able to reach me. If you don't, then you will get a bounce back. Anyway, just a couple of really quick things, and then I'll start with the written Q&A, and then we'll go to the people that wish to speak and ask their questions. As I said, we start out with 65 rooms at the Super 8. We will convert 5 of those under our proposal to support service space, meeting space. We'd like to have resident get-togethers too, and we'll have dental hygiene, we'll have resume writing, we'll have a variety of financial literacy. There's just a variety of support services. And then, so that narrows it down to 60 units. One of those will be for an on-site resident manager. So there will end up being 59 permanent supportive housing units for people coming out of experiencing homelessness. And there will be one on-site resident manager who lives there, a housing authority employee who reports to us. For those of you who don't know, our South Coast base of operations is just up Hollister from this particular site. It's off the corner of Kellogg and Armidos. There in Old Town Goleta. And so we will literally be 5 minutes if we hit every red light on Hollister away from this development, from our housing management and maintenance site. Okay, let me go to the written Q&A first, and then we will open it up for others. The first question that has come in, and thank you very much again for the questions. Will the stay be limited in time? I think this question was asked before we covered the nature of the permanent supportive housing. There are no set time limits, unlike for transitional housing or shelters. This is intended to be the person's home for as long as they need this more intensive wraparound support service, and they follow the rules. I tell people that our goal is to house people, but as anybody who is a landlord knows, unfortunately, sometimes that means having to evict people that present a danger to themselves, to other residents, or to our neighbors. Will there be a criminal background check before being admitted? I really appreciate this question. Yes, there is an intensive, in fact, we have beefed up the background checks just in the last couple months. Because this, again, the individual will be signing a lease. This is like any apartment building or any home that somebody has rented. You have a lease agreement. But yes, just like any other landlord, we do an extensive criminal background check. And there are certain things, particularly in the predatory nature, that would preclude anybody from ever residing in any of our properties, including at the Super 8. Will there be any work requirements? There are not specific work requirements, but the support services and the program is first to get the individual stabilized in housing. You can imagine it's a bit of a stressor being unhoused and not knowing where you're going to be living. So you come in, there is a period of adjustment. the person gets stabilized, and then that often then leads to a part-time job and ultimately to a full-time job. Not in every case, and there are people with disabilities who may not be able to work. But to answer your question directly, there are no specific work requirements. Okay, next question. Has anyone ascertained a study to understand the impact of this hotel conversion to the community in the Fairview Heights area? I'm not certain. We do undergo a number of studies. This particular location has been housing, although it's been of a more transitional nature. But there certainly there are traffic impacts that are associated with a hotel. With permanent supportive housing, very few of the individuals that we house are able to own vehicles. They just can't afford it. We require that vehicles be operating, they be licensed, they be registered, and the person has insurance. As we all know who drive, that's very expensive. And other than folks that we house who have been living in their vehicles, if the vehicles are operating, we are unlikely to have very many of our residents that will have vehicles on the site. Actually, quite frankly, that's what makes this particular location so great, because so many of our residents depend on public transportation and bicycling, both of which are really available here at Hollister and Fairview, as well as other services around. Another question is City of Goleta has no discretion, is that good? I can't answer the is that good question. I can assure everybody, we partner with people. We don't impose our will on people. So even though we have state law, including specific to the Homekey funding, that indicates that we can move the process faster than might otherwise be the case, we have been in partnership with the city since day one to let the city know what we're doing. The reason to have this meeting, actually, quite frankly, is when we have community meetings, members of the community will come up with really good suggestions. They'll come up with really good ideas. Some people have volunteered to provide support services. Some people have given us creative ideas of what to do with the common area space. So we're really open to an exchange of information from folks. Now this says, the next question is, does this include mentally ill people? There will definitely be people with mental health challenges at the site. As I think we all know, that is an issue with some people, not the majority, but with some people experiencing homelessness. There are mental health issues that are associated. There are also sometimes substance abuse issues and things. And that's where the support services come in. The referrals to the Super 8 will come through what is called the coordinated entry system. And that is a system where when individuals find that they're ready to be housed, because again, we cannot force housing on people. This is not a locked facility. We have no interest or ability to house people who do not want to be housed. When a person who is unhoused determines that they are ready to be housed, they will typically reach out to a support service provider. That could be a Department of Behavioral Wellness, that could be Transitional Mental Health, it could be Good Samaritan Shelters, it could be a variety of support service people. And those individuals providing the services will often then refer people to our units as they become available, with the goal of continuing those support services with the individual now stabilized in housing. One thing I think we can all agree on is that the provision of support services is a lot more effective when somebody is stabilized in housing than when you're trying to provide them on the sidewalk or under a bridge or at a freeway off-ramp. So yes, it definitely will include, but it will also include the support services to help the folks with mental health challenges. How are people selected? I got into that a little bit. They will be referrals through the coordinated entry system. And again, those names on the coordinated entry system are provided by support service providers who are already working with folks. The Homekey program is both folks experiencing homelessness and at risk of experiencing homelessness. So one of the provisions that we're really excited about is Transitional Age Youth. We have 12 units set aside for Transitional Age Youth. These are folks aging out of foster care who oftentimes are just left on the streets. You'll see young people experiencing homelessness because they really have nowhere else to go, having been forced out of wherever their living situation was. This will actually be our first opportunity to set aside units and have a specific focus on housing transitional age youth. Veterans is another focus of the Housing Authority, and we have specific programs to help veterans experiencing homelessness as well. So that's how people are selected. And again, we have the background checks before the lease is signed. How do you know people are from Goleta and not ambulant from other cities? Jaime touched on this when he talked about the point in time count that occurs on a regular basis. We ask people, where they were last living when they were housed. And the vast majority of folks here in Santa Barbara County, when asked, are connected to Santa Barbara County. In fact, we have a number of folks that graduated from UCSB or graduated from Santa Barbara City College or had other connections for a very long period of time to the city of Goleta and surrounding the city of Goleta. Even though folks are experiencing homelessness, they identify with the community. So the folks experiencing homelessness in the city and the surrounding area of the city of Goleta identify with the city of Goleta. I mean, that is where whatever support they have, that's where they find it. And so it's much better to house people where they already have this sense of community. It's just they go from unhoused to housed, but within an area that's familiar to them. So that is how we know. It is really through the referrals from coordinated entry, and coordinated entry is looking to refer people in areas in which they already have some support system. Another question is, how would tenants be selected? Already talked a little bit about that. It says, will progress be tracked in, and this is kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but it's the housing management information system that where we try to evaluate people as they're being housed and then follow up to see if they're able to retain their housing or no longer need the support services and they're able to move into more independent living situation. So yes, it will be tracked through that, the homeless management information system. Who will provide the wraparound services? Right now we have Good Samaritan Shelters, we have Department of Behavioral Wellness, and we have others that we're working with as we're waiting to have the state evaluate our application. So there will be a lot of local organizations that will be providing the wraparound services, the majority of them on site. Another question here in the Q&A is, does disability mean mentally ill? And again, we covered that a little bit. Yes, there are going to be folks with mental health challenges that will be housed here. We have housed in our other 6 developments that are spread throughout the county. They're permanent supportive housing. We do have experience in housing folks. It's all about the support services. It's all about providing the support that individuals need. I think many people, when we've done community meetings live pre-COVID, I would have dozens of people that would raise their hands when I would ask them, do you know somebody in your own family that has a mental health challenge and perhaps is insecure about their housing, living in a car or sleeping on people's sofas. And many people know somebody or have interacted with somebody. So I'm hoping that people aren't too frightened by the fact that, yes, there will be people with mental health challenges living here. Then the next question is, houses in that area will decrease in value. Does anyone care? Actually, quite frankly, that is not the experience in the state of California, and actually drilling down more closely into the county of Santa Barbara. There is no evidence at all that providing well-managed, well-built, well-maintained, affordable housing has any negative impact on values. We have our sister agency in the city of Santa Barbara has multi-million-dollar condos right next to affordable housing, and that has had absolutely no impact. We've had the same experience in areas throughout the county where people don't even know. I challenge people sometimes. I'll give them a street name and ask them to identify the affordable housing, and rarely can they do that. So there really is no evidence that there is any deprivation of property values because affordable housing has come in. Other than carrying the burden of this facility, what services does the city of Goleta have to provide for this facility, and at what cost? We actually are looking more toward, where the city is a great partner and can provide some help. It's mostly the individual nonprofit organizations, but there are county departments, the Department of Behavioral Wellness I've mentioned a couple of times, that are providing the services. And the funding actually comes from other funding sources. There are a number of state and federal and local funding sources specifically for the provision of support services. So we will not be looking to the city of Goleta and the general fund to provide that support service or to provide operating capital. And we never have in our 81 years, and we're not going to start here. Should churches in the area be involved as they have been historically? That would be terrific. That is a dream. We have experienced faith community being involved in virtually, well, in fact, in all of our permanent supportive housing developments. It really helps in that stabilizing influence. We have Pescadero Lofts, I'll use it as an example in Isla Vista, pre-COVID. And again, we're hoping to get it started again. But we had Wednesday night dinners, and different members of the faith community would take turns hosting the Wednesday night dinners. In fact, it got so fun that some of the residents would say, oh, we really like it when the Episcopalians come in. We're not as wild about maybe the Lutherans, so they need to step it up. It's something that we're really hoping to get back to because the individuals need support, and having community members and the faith-based community being a very important part really means a lot to the individuals we house. When they're on the streets, they really don't think anybody cares. If you speak to somebody, and as we do during the point in time count, the people that say they aren't looking for housing is because they don't think they'll ever get housing. And when you provide them a home that is there for as long as they need it and follow the rules, that changes the perspective. So yes, please, I cannot emphasize enough, social groups, church groups, any local organizations, please reach out to me and we'll get you directly involved in helping the individuals who'll be living here and maybe in other developments that we have. Is the property in the coastal zone? The answer is yes. The coastal zone, we have reached out to the coastal zone, and they're under the same state rules and regulations as the city of Goleta. So this is deemed consistent within the coastal zone. Are there really any houses in the area? I was going to cover that when somebody talked about homes and property values. This particular site is great, as I said, because of the public transportation, the availability of services, potential job opportunities. There are Jiffy Lube and Taco Bell and other places for the residents once they're stabilized. But there really aren't homes in that immediate area surrounding it. It is primarily a commercial zone. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think within the immediate area there is. Isn't it the case that the neighbors are tire shops, oil change, light manufacturing, fast food, and discount shopping? And that, of course, is correct. In fact, one of the larger employers in the area, Yardi, has actually reached out to us, and they want to provide some money to help the individuals as they're moving in to get some basic necessities. This is an area too where, you know, the faith community, other organizations, the folks who are coming out of experiencing homelessness, what they have with them is what they can carry in a shopping cart or in a backpack. And so there are a lot of household needs beyond what we're able to provide using the state and the local funding. So yes, there are definitely opportunities to do that. Yardi, again, has already stepped up to the plate to offer to help, and we'll be looking for others to hopefully do that. Next question, can a study of this state be performed before implementing this Homekey project? Let me see, can a study of this state be performed before implementing this Homekey project? I'm not quite sure. You might want to clarify if you could in the Q&A. Right now, where the development is, just to let people know, an application has been made to the state of California for Homekey 2.0 funding. The state has started contacting us with questions. We do not have an award yet, but they have started asking us questions to clarify certain things in the application. Once the funding is awarded, I'm going to think the power of positive thinking. We do have some months of renovation and things. So I'm not really quite sure where the study of this state. I think we all know there are a lot of people experiencing homelessness in and around the city of Goleta, which is why we're really looking to do this and house people in a humane way.
Yeah, John, that's. Let me just interject here for a second.
Sure.
I think that's how I interpret the question. Do we need to do a study to determine whether there's a need for this for homelessness? Maybe I can ask the question that way. And it's clear from past point in time counts, and which was covered in the first part of the slide. There is an extensive need in the community. If there was no need at all, the Housing Authority would not be pursuing this state opportunity. Maybe that's the best way to answer it.
Great. Thank you very much, Bob. Okay, and now the next questions. I really thank everybody for their questions because it's reminding me of different points that I wanted to bring up, but I didn't want to drone on forever. So the fact that I'm answering questions actually gives me the opportunity to do that. Will the common area have access control, such as a locked at night policy or perhaps even electronic keyed access? We're still in the process of looking to see how we will implement the full security. Most of our developments, in fact, I think all that I can think of, have a key fob, have a locked system. And we do use security cameras at great length. We'll use live security guards and actually pay overtime to police officers when that is needed. But mostly our security is based on a key fob locking system and controlled access through the key fob, but then also having security cameras that have a high enough resolution that we can do facial recognition if somebody is caught on camera breaking the law. We have strong ties with the police department, with the sheriff's department, and we're able to enforce the rules that way. As I said before, though, this is not a locked facility. This is not going to be locking people in at any time, day or night. But we do really, we're really always concerned about the security of our residents as well as our neighbors. Has the Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara in comparable properties actually towed non-compliant vehicles? Yes, we have. Again, that's not the business we're in, but vehicles parked on site and registered on site have to be operating. They cannot be up on blocks. They have to be insured. They have to be duly registered and licensed. And yet, so yes, we have had to tow vehicles that are parked on our sites. And unfortunately, evicted persistently and willfully non-compliant residents in actual practice, or is HACSB such wishy-washy bleeding hearts that it never acts on the rules? I really do appreciate this question. I really do. I'm very serious about that. The Housing Authority's mission is very narrowly focused. It's to provide affordable housing to the most vulnerable people in the county of Santa Barbara. And the city of Santa Barbara Housing Authority does the same thing within the city of Santa Barbara. We operate within the other 7 cities and the county's unincorporated area. Being in this business, yes, we do want to help people. That is true. However, both Bob and I came out of the private sector before coming to the Housing Authority, and being consistent in enforcing rules and regulations is something that is highly valued at the Housing Authority. So yes, it is unfortunate. It is not the business we're in. We're in the business of housing people, but unfortunately, being a landlord means that you sometimes have to also evict. And we have done that more times than we can count. In fact, we have a number, probably a dozen or so at the current time now that courts are back reopened. So I don't, hone in on that too much, except to hearken back to that definition of permanent supportive housing. The individual has responsibility here. When they sign that lease, they are agreeing to abide by the terms, which basically come down to, you're not a danger to yourself, you're not a danger to our staff or other residents, and you're not a danger to our neighbors. And that's where it comes from. So yes, and again, I really appreciate that wishy-washy bleeding hearts. I hope to meet you sometime, because I really do, as I said, I really do appreciate that question, because we do evict. We can't give you the names, but we can give you raw numbers. Okay, where is the tactical operational plan for this facility? Again, this is permanent supportive housing. It is like an apartment building, but with support services. So the operation is the same as it would be with any of our properties. But additionally, we will have the robust wraparound support services provided on site. We did submit a support service plan to the state. I don't know if we can make that specific plan, if that's a public record yet, but we certainly will be able to let the community know, what the support service plan is for the Super 8, if we are fortunate enough to be awarded the funding. Are there anticipated modifications of the MTD routing or communications with MTD accommodating the development? Actually, that is on my to-do list, is to connect with MTD. One of the great things about the Hollister Fairview corner is you have great existing bus transportation. I can't think of a time where I've been at the Super 8, even for a few minutes, where I've not seen a couple buses going by. But yes, we do. Whenever we're developing a new property before people are housed, and we're not looking to house people till the end of this year, beginning of next year, simply because of the rehabilitation that will be needed. But we will certainly be connecting with MTD, because most, if not all, of our residents will be MTD customers. So thank you very much for that. And I don't know if somebody from MTD is on the line, but I will be connecting with them. A study of the impact to nearby communities and population. Again, all of the various studies that have been done, if a property is well managed, well maintained, and you do, enforce the individual's responsibility to follow the rules, all of the studies that are available from the state are that there is no impact either to property values or to individuals. And We are here, we're based in Santa Barbara County. And like I said, our South Coast base of operations is just up Hollister, less than a 5-minute drive away from this site. So we are in constant communication with our neighbors and with the community. So if there is an issue that develops, we will work to address it. I mean, issues do occur, but we will work to address them as soon as we're made aware of them. Because there are so few residents with cars anticipated this development, can we expect that auto traffic might get better with the conversion of the Super 8? I'm not a traffic study expert, but I can say that I want to say probably all the folks staying at the Super 8 currently come via car, and most of our residents will not have vehicles. So I guess that's really all I can say, not having the specific traffic study expertise, but I do appreciate that question. Since the site is such an ideal site, I wonder if there might be a plan B if this funding falls through. Right now, our plan A is what there is. As I said, we submitted, thanks to the partnership and the team effort with the County of Santa Barbara and the City of Goleta, we submitted a very strong application. The good news within our funding is if you're being asked questions, that means that they're seriously considering your application for funding. When you don't hear anything is when you get nervous. It's not, in our world, it's not no news is good news. It's actually quite the opposite. So we have already received some questions. We know that they're looking at our application already. But I think we would have to think about that. I could not tell you there is a current plan B, because again, we're talking about $16 million coming from the state of a $19.7 million effort. This is significant funding, and that's why we're really making an all-out effort to bring it into the county. Since you appear to have done a lot of research on this topic, can you give some examples of other similar projects in California or elsewhere, lessons learned from those that are incorporated in this project? Well, actually, we have, as I said, we have 6 permanent supportive housing developments spread throughout the county. The closest being Pescadero Lofts in Isla Vista. Over the 7+ years and pre-COVID, we did numerous tours with service groups, with nonprofit groups, with church groups to just see, how permanent supportive housing works in reality on the ground. So yes, I mean, we have our own experience. We learn lessons on every single development we do. As I mentioned earlier, I've not been here 81 years, but I have been here going on 26 years. And I learn lessons every day. With every development that we do, we learn lessons and we try to incorporate it. And people give us great ideas as well. But there are also similar projects in the state of California through the original Homekey. And recently, the County of Santa Barbara was actually successful in getting some Homekey funding for a transitional housing development that will be located in Isla Vista as well. So yes, there are a lot of lessons learned, but again, we're open to learning. We have every day. I just got a note from Jackie, and thank you very much. We do have a video of Pescadero Lofts on our website, which is www.hasbarco.org. Again, I hope to be able to get back to at least small group tours in the near future. But until then, that will give an idea of folks who are experiencing homelessness. The Pescadero Lofts folks are interesting. The average time unhoused was 14 years when the residents moved into Pescadero Lofts. We had one veteran who had been unhoused since coming back from Vietnam when they were housed at Pescadero Lofts a little bit over 7 years ago. So really do appreciate that question. Yes, learn new things every single day and better ways of doing things. I also mentioned that we beefed up our background checks simply because, we learned that the background checks we were doing before had some areas that were missing in them. I thought the question about the state study was not related to need, but in EIR. but the CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, and community waivers probably apply. Yes, they do. In this particular case, there is that exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act. But again, this is an existing multifamily property. It's being changed from this more transitional use to permanent supportive housing, which the state has deemed is consistent. Goleta, the good land, is a peaceful community. Are we going to experience an increase in criminality? A really good question. My answer to that is, in connecting with the police department and the sheriff's department, what we have heard every time we've been able to provide permanent supportive housing in an area, and I'll use Pescadero Lofts again as a great local example. We heard from the Foot Patrol that the incidents that they experienced with people experiencing homelessness went down even more dramatically than the 32 people we housed at Pescadero Lofts, because their friends who were unhoused, who had given up hope of being housed, saw their buddy get housed at Pescadero Lofts, but we ran out of rooms there, but they now have a little bit more hope. And they started, taking support services and advantages of what was offered more seriously, with the hope of getting housing where they had given up hope before. So no, that is not, and the other thing is that we will be primarily, not maybe exclusively, but primarily housing folks who are experiencing homelessness in and around the city of Goleta. These are folks that are already in and around the city of Goleta. When I did tours of Pescadero Lofts, and we had Supervisor Hart on earlier, when Supervisor Hart took a tour, and Supervisor Hartman as well, they recognized so many people who they had seen on the streets, who are now housed at Pescadero Lofts. Because again, these were people who were unhoused for long periods of time. So if anything is the case, the incidents associated with people experiencing homelessness and the community impacts of that go down when we're able to house people in permanent supportive housing.
Yes, John, you answered that great. And I just want to chime in a little bit as well. From a global perspective, when you have people who are unhoused, it impacts the fire department, the police department, parks and rec, the emergency rooms at hospitals. So when you're able to stabilize people, there is a net benefit to the community. So it actually gives an opportunity to reduce overall crime, and it solves a logistical problem for many departments within both the city as well as the county.
Yeah, I would, dare say that anybody in the community that gets out at all, you interact on a pretty much daily basis, and maybe multiple times a day, with people experiencing homelessness. And everybody's story is different, but that changes when people are stabilized in permanent supportive housing. Goleta housing is on the top 10% in California. Are there other areas with more affordable facilities? As I said, the Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara, our jurisdiction encompasses all of Santa Barbara County with the exception of the city of Santa Barbara, which has its own housing authority. I can tell you that the city of Santa Barbara Housing Authority has done a great job as well in providing permanent supportive housing for folks within the city of Santa Barbara. And we have permanent supportive housing developments in the cities of Santa Maria, in Lompoc, and in the community of Isla Vista as well. So yes, I mean, we have areas, parts of the county that are more affordable, but really, quite frankly, the pressures to house the most vulnerable people experiencing homelessness are in the higher cost areas because that's where the housing is least affordable. And I think we all know of stories. We see people living in their cars, living in RVs, sleeping on people's couches, and of course, the most visible, the encampments and people at freeway off-ramps. And again, people identify with communities. People stick around the city of Goleta because they like the city of Goleta. even if they're unhoused. And so what we try to do is to house them where they are comfortable, even though they're unhoused. Given that government COVID protocols are subject to political pressures, does the Housing Authority independently consider CDC and other pertinent authorities with respect to its policies regarding indoor masks, et cetera? Yes, in fact, we've taken a very strong approach. Again, we're interested in the health and safety of everybody, our residents, our staff, our neighbors. So we still have a mask policy indoor at all of our developments, at all of our offices. We do extra cleaning. We have sanitizing stations available at various locations, or hand sanitizer kits and bottles. So yes, we take protecting the health and safety of everyone really, really seriously. So yes, we have taken an approach that is very conservative in that area. We are not the first to eliminate health and safety protocols. I can say that with certainty. And Bob might want to chime in on that.
Yeah, we've adopted a pandemic plan, and we've followed its implementation, and we've modified it over time as well. So yes, as John mentioned, it's a very comprehensive plan that we follow to ensure everyone's safety, both staff, residents, as well as the rest of the community.
Yeah, and actually one of the things I can say that we're really proud of is almost all, and Bob, I think it was only maybe a couple of our residents that experienced serious enough COVID symptoms to go into the ICU or to pass away, simply because everybody was required. And again, we serve right around 1,500 folks in the units, probably actually more than that with multiple household members. So we're really, proud of the fact that we have kept our staff and our residents as safe as we possibly could. Concerned about the long-term effect when the state funding dries out and the city is left with a problem. What measures exist to ensure this does not become a City of Goleta problem in the future? It's a really good question. I really appreciate that, because I really hope that it comes from the community when they ask this question, because I don't want to beat on our drum too much. As I said, we're looking for about $16 million of the $19.7 million for this development to get it ready for permanent supportive housing to house people. That $16 million will come from the state. We have designed the funding sources in a way in which the rents that people will be paying, whether through rental assistance programs or because they get jobs or whatever, will be enough to sustain the development for the long term. So as I mentioned before, in the 81-year history of the Housing Authority, we have never gone to any of the cities or to the county to look for operational funding to keep the lights on in any of our developments out of the general fund. What we look for up front is enough infusion of cash so that we can do the development, but only have debt that we can pay off based on what our rental income and the income stream is. So no, it's the Housing Authority will own it, not the City of Goleta. The Housing Authority is responsible for its operation and maintenance and management. We will not, again, going on this 81-year history, we will not look to the City of Goleta for general fund money to keep the lights on.
Yeah, and just to be clear here, there is going to be no debt on this property. It will be owned free and clear. All of the funding sources will allow us to acquire the property as well as do an extensive rehabilitation and a retrofit for its use, as Tom Jess, our architect, mentioned earlier. And the Housing Authority, to the extent possible, will be providing vouchers to many of the residents that are there, and that will ensure a revenue stream that will allow us to maintain the building properly, as well as to help provide supportive services for the residents.
And if, as I said, we have this 81-year history, we have 12-year history of providing permanent supportive housing. If anyone would like to contact me because they would like to drive by, Pescara Lofts or any of our other developments, just to see how properties, once they've been on the ground for a number of years. And again, 81 years of never requesting this additional operating money to keep the lights on from any of the cities or the county general fund, hopefully speaks for itself. Truly appreciated the answers here. Not in favor of this, but seeking to better understand the consequences of doing this. Thank you. And again, to the folks that who wrote this particular Q&A, and also to others who may feel the same way, I really do appreciate it. We are here to answer questions, to let folks know what we're doing, what we're not doing, what permanent supportive housing is, what it is not. But I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of a conversation, and that people such as the individuals here who may not be in favor, but they're hoping to better understand, connect with us and keep in touch with us, see what we do. When we're able to open up tours again, we'll ask me, I have literally dozens of people that I owe a tour of Pescara Lofts to that signed up right before COVID hit, and we had to suspend property tours. But please do that. We are here. I've given you my email address. If you contact me and I can't answer a question, I can send on, and connect you with somebody who can. So I really appreciate, folks with an open mind. We know that not everybody is going to be cheerleading at this point, but we hope to slowly answer questions. And I think, the proof is when you see the folks who were formerly outside of Ralph's or Vaughn's or at the freeway off-ramp, housed, becoming stabilized, addressing whatever issues they have. Everybody's different with support services, and ultimately getting into the community. That's really what makes our job the most rewarding, and I know that of the city folks and the county of Santa Barbara folks too. What are the requirements for the residents? I mentioned it at the beginning. People will be signing a lease, so there will be an agreement to abide by the rules and regulations, and they're typical rules that you would expect in any area where people are living together and are expected to get along without endangering others. In addition to that, we have specific rules that the private marketplace doesn't, with regard to cars being parked, to unauthorized household members. You will never see a housing authority property that has too many people, that is overwhelmed by having numerous families or numerous individuals living there who are not on the lease. That is specifically prohibited, and that can be a cause for eviction. Unauthorized household members is a leading cause for eviction. And so you will not see the overcrowding that you sometimes see in the private marketplace units. Is sobriety required? It is not. We're not a dry place, but if a person has a beer and that does not negatively impact on their ability to follow the rules, and it does not impact negatively on the other residents, and they don't become a nuisance in the community, in our neighborhood, that's fine. Where there is an issue is if a legal use, such as alcohol, becomes an issue because the individual becomes belligerent or otherwise behaves inappropriately. It's not the fact that they're not sober, it's the fact of their behavior when they're not sober. So I hope that that's clear. But we are not a dry environment. This is independent living with robust support services included. Is drug addiction allowed for residents? Again, is drug use allowed? We will house people in all of our permanent supportive housing. This is the case. Some people who are addicted. We cannot allow knowingly the use of illegal drugs. And at this case, federal law still has marijuana as a restricted drug. In reality, the individuals, as part of wanting to be housed, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, they're looking for help to get rid of their drug dependence or alcohol dependence. So at Pescara Lofts, for an example, the residents came to us early on, over 7 years ago, and said, AA meetings on the site would really help us. So we are open if AA meetings on the site, if NA meetings on the site will help. But that again is where the wraparound support services come in, is for that. And particularly the illegal drug use. It is an issue. I will not sugarcoat it. Meth in particular is a real problem, both in society and in our housing. And we take steps, dramatic steps, when the individual's behavior becomes such that they can't be permitted to continue living there.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know, Bob,
would,
if you wanted to.
yeah, no, I think, John, you answered it well. And what I would suggest, the question you ask is a very good one. And like John mentioned earlier, we really appreciate all these questions. What I would say is, to answer your question fully and completely, I would highly encourage you to get in touch with John, because as we do tours, you can see operationally how we've addressed these issues. The questions that are being asked and the issues that are being raised come up at all of our developments. And our experience is there's a lot of fear associated with people who either have formerly had chemical addictions or who have a mental illness. And so I would highly encourage a tour, because I think you'll be surprised at how these issues are addressed. We could literally spend hours discussing how individuals transition and stabilize once they get permanent supportive housing. John, what I would suggest at this point, I know there's a few other questions here, but I noticed in the chat that someone was asking, when are we going to take questions from the audience? And I'm wondering if this would be a good opportunity for us to sort of switch gears. And again, thank you all for your written questions. I think that's helpful. And Jackie, I'm wondering if you can.
Bob, I only have a couple other written questions, and then I was going to. We're really down to just the last few, so let me just address them really quickly.
We do have two people who have their hands raised.
Just really quickly in here. How can we refer individuals experiencing homelessness? It really is connect them with a support service provider. Whether it's mental health challenges or substance abuse. Please, because that's where we get the referrals into coordinated entry and ultimately into permanent supportive housing. Congrats for getting this property for permanent supportive housing. It's ideal property for this purpose. Really appreciate that comment. I was going to ask about the roof, but et cetera, but only free and clear will be an enormous cushion. Yes, and we also fully fund reserves very early on. Because we all know things happen. With the addition of cooking in the rooms, will there be solar panels? We have put solar panels on virtually all of our properties. Ultimately, that will be a goal. And particularly if we can find funding specifically for that, we would do that. And then a thing here is actually no one at Pescara Lofts is a drinker at this time. And there's no reason to think that a single person's using hard drugs. So again, this is addressing a misconception. The vast majority of the folks, and again, everybody's story is different, who are experiencing homelessness is not necessarily tied to a drug addiction or substance abuse. It can be some really, turbulent times that enter somebody's life. an event that that just couldn't be handled. And that is often the case. So I appreciate that comment. When residents buy drugs, it empowers local and non-local gangs. We couldn't agree more. We are completely against that and will take action. Most homeless people are in fact clean and dry and resent the stigma and automatic presumption. This is the last comment that I have, and it really is true. Again, everybody's story is different, but please don't lump people experiencing homelessness together because everybody's story is different. And people that former CEOs of medium-sized companies, people that were in the military and others that we house at Pescadero Lofts, for example, it wasn't anything to do with substance abuse, with drugs. It was other things that happened. So, okay, that answers all the Q&A. I really appreciate the Q&A, but let's go to the hands. And Jackie, do you want to?
We'll start with Alexis.
Okay.
Okay, Alexis, you should be able to be heard now.
I cannot hear Alexis yet.
Yeah, I know.
Alexis, can you unmute?
Hi.
There she is.
Hi.
Hi. I think I raised my hand on accident.
Oh,
So sorry. I'm just listening.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for your attendance, and everyone too for your Q&A and for your interest and taking the time. But thank you, Alexis.
yeah, I have one more raised hand here.
Okay.
Oh.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Sarah Isa. I am the Land Development Manager at Santa Barbara Airport, City of Santa Barbara. While this is not a City of Santa Barbara project, this effort does support our City of Santa Barbara Council priority of addressing homelessness as it aims to create an effective pathway from homelessness to transitional housing to permanent housing. As such, the city and the adjacent Santa Barbara Airport support the project, and we wish the project success and are available to collaborate on project review and implementation as it relates to Santa Barbara Airport. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. We really appreciate it. I know when we thought we were able to do the Super 8 a year and a half ago under the original Homekey, the city and the Airport Commission really stepped up to the plate then. So yes, we will be back in touch. So thank you so much, Sarah, for attending and for your comments.
Thank you.
I
Good
see
evening.
Supervisor Hartman has her hand up.
Thank you. Quick question, John. Given that most of the residents won't have cars and there is quite a bit of space devoted now to parking, do you have any idea how you might use that going forward?
Well, you know, that is a really good question. The majority of the parking that's behind the building all the way back behind the Super 8 is actually the City of Santa Barbara, and I believe it's the airport that owns that. That space is actually being leased currently by the folks that own the Super 8. So that's why I really appreciate Sarah. I didn't want to get into negotiating and talking about various things necessarily at this community meeting, but I will be in touch because you know, it will be interesting. Maybe there is some way in which we can collaborate on something, even if we don't need the parking spaces themselves, which we likely won't. That's really great, Sarah. I again really appreciate your comment because it's a great introduction into something I had on my to-do list, which was to reach out to you.
Okay, good.
I see the mayor has her hand up as well.
Thank you, John, so much. Great presentation. Your answers were fabulous to all the questions. It really became clear. I learned a few more things this evening as well, so thank you. I'm just wondering if we might maybe collaborate and have another what are we calling this? The educational outreach Q&A.
Community informational Q&A.
Informational Q&A, I like it. If we could, maybe moving forward, might there be a need to do another? Just a thought.
We are certainly open to that. And you know, we'll see the reach out, but yes, you know, and in fact, maybe, again, thinking very positively, when you're closer to the actual award from the state, you know, would be a really good time, because we'll have our plans will be refined a little bit more, and we'll really be looking for ideas, you know, from the community. So that's a great thing that you're suggesting there, Paula. Thank you.
And we think, John, we think that information from the state will be coming sometime in March. Is that hopeful?
Well, you know, we are already getting questions. They are awarding on a rolling basis. So the fact that they're asking questions and we're able to respond, although sometimes we don't understand necessarily all the questions, but we're in direct communication back and forth, which is a good thing. So it could really happen at any time, but I would say, and Bob might want to chime in, I would say, you know, looking at a March timeframe for an actual award is probably the most realistic. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think somewhere between early and mid-March, we should have a pretty good idea whether the state plans to award the project or not.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank to everybody that helped put this informational Q&A together. Thank you.
Well, it really was a team effort. I mean, this whole thing from the start has been a team effort with the county, the city of Goleta, and the Housing Authority. So I can't stress that enough. You know, nobody individually. This is a tough problem to tackle. It is something. If it were easy, somebody would have resolved it already. And really appreciate the strong support, again, unanimous support from the Board of Supervisors, from the City Council, from the Mayor, and our board, our Housing Authority Board as well, not to forget them, in you know, seeking the permanent supportive housing. And again, you really appreciate the members of the community that stuck it out. It was an excellent Q&A. I really, again, appreciated the questions. Do we have more, Jackie?
We have two more people that would like to ask questions.
Okay, please.
James John is up next.
Hello, thank you for taking our question. Yeah, go ahead, Z.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm so sorry. My name is Azita John, and my husband and I have been actually just feeding, doing dinners in Isla Vista for the past several years, past 5 years. And so we've gotten to know the homeless and IV pretty well, which has been a huge blessing for us. And so when I heard about the Super 8 motel, I was just thinking, had a lot of thoughts. But the one thought I really had was learning about another housing kind of situation that was going on in Santa Barbara, and how one of our guys actually got a roommate that was a drug dealer. And he ended up actually starting to do hard drugs, which he hadn't done before. And it was really concerning to me because he had only been drinking alcohol before. And the thing that was really worrying was, well, how did that not get addressed? Or how did they not know? How did whoever was kind of interviewing and making sure that the right people were going into the housing, how did they not know that that they were teaming up people that maybe had similar addictions together, and then kind of propagate the problem? And so I'm curious about this specific motel and how is that going to work? Because you don't want to be housing people that have similar issues, or even, next door to each other, and create a bigger problem.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question and perspective, and thank you. I don't know if you're familiar with Pescadero Lofts. I'm sure you are, with the work you're doing in Isla Vista. For one thing, these will be basically single room studio type of development. So I mean, there will be couples that will be living there. It'll be mostly individuals, but there could be a single parent with a small child. There could be a couple living there as well. But we don't, pair up. There's not a roommate situation here. It would be individual households. But you're right. We have no interest. If a drug dealer moves in, it infects the entire development because of the interaction of the residents. So that's why I said, earlier, lessons learned. Somebody asked earlier in the Q&A about do you learn lessons from our colleagues and our other developments? And yes, we do. And again, we have strongly enhanced our background checks and making sure that we can try to find that out if we can. No system is perfect. Anybody that owns property that, as a landlord will tell you that you can be very, very careful. Somebody is going to slip through the cracks at some point. And that's where our commitment to people following the rules comes in. Because the minute that we're made aware that somebody is dealing drugs, somebody's encouraging people to use drugs, somebody is out there doing that, they're put under eviction. And so it is just not tolerated. If we're able to catch a lot with the background checks, we're able to avoid housing people who are dealing drugs in most cases. But in the rare cases where that slips through, we take action immediately. And actually, quite frankly, we partner with the police department and the sheriff's department to take really quick action in those cases, because oftentimes these are individuals known to them that have priors. And so we leave no stone unturned to make sure that we have a safe environment for all the residents. So your point is very well taken.
Yeah, and I will just add to that, there are techniques that we actually use that we can't disclose or we don't feel comfortable disclosing publicly, but we do monitor the activities very carefully. So I would encourage you also to, connect with John and, arrange for a tour. Some of the things in small groups, we might be willing to share a little bit more information, but we do monitor very carefully the activities at our developments. So, and as John mentioned, once we discover that there's drug dealing or that type of activity, we immediately move to proceed to eviction.
So thank you very much for that question. Jackie, was there somebody else with their hand raised?
We have JD now who would like to speak.
Sure.
Okay, JD.
I just want to thank everyone. You're doing yeoman's work, but I especially want to thank the people in the community who came out. Sharon Byrne, I don't know if she's still online, but I've seen over the years, she's really done fantastic work. And she really started out as someone who was quite skeptical about a lot of the intervention agencies, and she has really a vast font of knowledge, skills, and abilities that she's bringing to the picture. So I'm grateful to see her here. And also I want to thank Viviana for offering her services. I know her from the university. She did great work. And
Yes.
I hope there's nobody who speaks Spanish who didn't want to speak up and ask for a translation. But I'm sure Viviana probably covered that. And so I came in a bit late. But also I especially want to thank the people who came out with skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
And my name is Jeff. I was formerly on the county advisory board on homeless issues when I was homeless myself. And I'm always very sensitive that my comrade in arms did not impact the community in a bad way. And I have housing now, and I can assure you that these programs that are putting people into housing are doing an incredible amount to mitigate the impact of homelessness on the community. And Pescadero Lofts is an excellent example of that, because I have seen people who were very distressed. There was someone who I actually wrote a letter to someone who worked professionally. I said, we've got to do something for this woman. She's talking to herself, she's wandering. And that person became known as the nicest person in Isla Vista, and completely recovered, completely clean. And unfortunately, she did pass away from a heart attack. I really appreciate, and I know Phoebe, and probably the Phoebe that I know was logged on. And I just appreciate the concern, and people who have businesses and who own property. Your concerns are absolutely valid, and Mr. Polanski and his colleagues are they're consummate professionals, and I really believe that the community will improve. And I also want to thank Paula for coming out, and and everyone else who I may have missed. So I just mainly want to express gratitude, particularly even to the skeptics, and your questions and concerns are not being dismissed by anyone at any level. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate that. And I concur. I want to echo something he said. We're not looking just for the cheerleaders to come to a meeting like this, because usually they don't have the same type of questions or concerns that community members do. So we really appreciate the people willing to have an open mind, coming with whatever skepticism and whatever life experience they have, and being willing to ask questions and listen to the answers. So and to be respectful. I really, really appreciate because everybody, they asked questions. Some of them were tough questions, but were asked in a very meaningful, very open way. So we really do appreciate your time and your interest. And as Paula said, I see us doing something similar again, probably sometime next month, maybe the middle toward the end of March, just to you regroup as we're closer to receiving the funding. Jackie, do we have any other raised hands? And Viviana, I was going to check in with you next to see if there were any raised hands or anybody that indicated to you they wish to speak.
We do not have any more raised hands.
Viviana, is there anybody on your end that would care to speak?
And John, I'd like to thank you for answering all the questions. We're going to wheel oxygen to your house so that you can recover by morning. So well done.
I actually enjoy this. I really love the live community meetings. As tough as sometimes those questions can get, but I think that what we do, if it's important enough to be done, we need to be able to explain it to people and answer people's questions. And I see Supervisor Hart has his hand up. Greg, you're on.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to John and the entire team, Peter Imhoff and Jaime Valdez and Bob Havlicek and everybody who's been here tonight telling the story about the Housing Authority and the projects that you do. And I really want to appreciate all of the members of the public who came to listen carefully and ask really tough probing questions, because the Housing Authority has a very, very long track record of success. And I'm very confident that this project will be a success, particularly with the great partnership we have with the city of Goleta and the county. And this is just a great way for folks to understand at a granular level all of the answers to the tough questions people have, and look forward to more questions. John obviously enjoys doing this. He's really good at it, and we're very proud of him and all the folks at the Housing Authority and the work that they do.
Thank you very much, Greg, and you and Joan and Paula and everyone at the city and county, the staff that are behind the scenes that helped us bring this off. This is a bigger Zoom meeting than we're used to having at the Housing Authority. So we really appreciate that. Viviana, again, yes, echoing the thanks to you for the translation services. It's really important that we incorporate folks who primarily speak Spanish, because they're members of the community and need to, be able to ask questions and understand what it is that we're doing. And again, to the city and county staff who helped put this off. And I want to also thank the media. I know the media doesn't sometimes, get a lot of thanks, but media from print and television as well as online media have all contacted me and expressed, real strong interest in what it is that we're doing and in the broader issue of people experiencing homelessness. So I really appreciate your help getting the word out to folks. So I guess then we will, unless somebody has a final word that they would like to say, I think we will make this a wrap.